Hi, I'm Old Norse specialist and historical linguist Dr. Jackson Crawford. And in my career of nearly a quarter century teaching Old Norse and other Germanic languages, I've become very interested in Gothic because Gothic is the Germanic language, member of the subfamily of languages closest related to English, German, and the Scandinavian languages. It's the Germanic language that we have the oldest long records of. The Bible translation into Gothic is from the 300s. That means it is further back in time from Snorri Sturluson, the Old Norse writer who gave us the Poetic Edda, than Snorri Sturluson is from us. So Gothic is often a very important attestation of the earliest forms of words that we can reasonably be sure of in Germanic languages. And although Gothic has no direct descendants, uh, asterisk footnote, if you grow up on Gotland today, your native language is Swedish, although it is not impossible that the Goths originally came from Gotland, and there are some aspects of Old Gutnish that are similar to Gothic and may suggest that that dialect has, at least some influence there. Off of that footnote, there are no direct descendants of Gothic today. Uh, the Gothic Bible is written out in the 300s, and we don't have very much other than the Bible. We have the Skirines, which are some commentaries on the book of John in the Bible. We have some deeds. There is one sermon, which has some additional quotes from the Bible that was discovered in 2009. And there's a little bit of graffiti from Crimea in Ukraine that was identified in pretty recently, I want to say in about 2015. I made a video about that several years ago. And that graffiti from Crimea dates from the 800s, maybe into the 900s, and represents the last, for sure, use of the same language that is in the Gothic Bible and the same alphabet that is in the Gothic Bible. I've been obsessing a little bit about that Gothic alphabet recently too. See a whole video I made about that and its connection with runes. But we have, I know I got a lot of thunder around here. We have a very interesting attestation that Gothic actually did survive in Crimea until the 1500s. There was a Flemish diplomat and traveler named Busbeck who in 1562 recorded some words in the Germanic language spoken in Crimea. Now, he was not in Crimea, he was talking to two informants. One of them was a native Greek speaker, and the other had been speaking mostly Greek for most of his life. And Busbeck didn't know Gothic, so he didn't know how to spell things like Gothic, so the words don't look, familiar from Biblical Gothic. And he wasn't a linguist. But the list of words that he gives us powerfully suggests that this really is Gothic that survived into the 1500s. Now, we have no solid evidence that it survived any longer than that. Another traveler, Prussian, Peter Simon Pallas, found no speakers in Crimea when he was looking for them in 1794. So sometime between the 1500s and the 1700s it went extinct, maybe on the very early end of that. But in the 1500s, there were still people speaking a language very much like the language of the Gothic Bible in the 300s, so 1200 years later. It's like finding somebody speaking Old English today. There's some distinctive Old East Germanic features from Biblical Gothic. There's the retention of the nominative singular s in a word like wince, or stats, or yes, he. There is the higher vowel from Proto-Germanic E1, like Biblical Gothic has, so mine, moon, like Biblical Gothic mena, not like Old Norse moni or English moon. Micha, sword, like Biblical Gothic mekis, not like Old Norse makir. There's a retention of some unstressed syllables at least, like in ugana, eyes, like Biblical Gothic ogona, or handa, hand. Now, Biblical Gothic has handus, but that would, since that's a feminine, it would easily have assimilated in the course of 1200 years to the more typical feminine pattern that ends in an ah. There is the distinctive Gothic feature Verschärfung, where a Proto-Germanic JJ becomes DDJ. Something similar happens at Old Norse, but the old JJ becomes GGJ. The diagnostic word for this is egg. So like German I, uh, Old English I, that single G isn't there anymore. It's retained as an off-glide, if anything. But Old Norse egg, which is borrowed into English egg. Our word egg is not the native English word. It's borrowed from Norse. And Crimean Gothic Adda. It's what we'd expect, even though the word egg isn't preserved in the Gothic Bible. That's what it should look like. Another distinctive Gothic feature is the retained D in the number 4, fidder, Biblical Gothic fifth war or fithur in compounds. And they may even have retained a two-syllable word for it or that, thata, in a couple phrases that Busbeck quotes. Ik malthata, I say, tho warthata, you made, yes, warthata, he made. It certainly looks like that thata is maybe surviving.
Hey folks, we'll be back to your regular presentation in a moment, but for right now, I'm here at Grimfrost World Headquarters Longhouse with Johan Hegg, and I just want to remind you that if you have Viking needs, you have a Viking supplier. Grimfrost really cares about getting things right, and if you need replica, well, anything, right? Shields, helmets, weapons, board games, cool t-shirts, hats, all sorts of accessories like that. You can get them at grimfrost.com together with my books, and they ship just about anywhere in the world. So check them out. It does help support the channel.
We get numbers. Ita, tua, three, fyther, fyf, seis, sevena, åtta, nina, tina. Looks like 1 to 10, which look plausibly enough like Biblical Gothic. The number 1 could be derived either from the neuter singular anata, maybe also from just ita, it. Weirdly, we get for 11 and 12 tinata, tinatua, so 10-1, 10-2. That doesn't look very much like other Germanic languages, English 11, 12, or even Biblical Gothic enlif, 12. This is where it looks like there's some Persian influence. Compare Persian Yazda 110 and Davazda 210 for 11, 12. I don't know how to pronounce Persian well, so this is just for reference. 20, interestingly, is stega. Now in Biblical Gothic, we get twe tigius, 2 10s. It's the same thing that gives us, for example, Old Norse tötigu, and kind of distantly English 20. But the stega word for 20 in Biblical Gothic is probably the cognate of German stiga, Dutch steg, which is a group of 20 eggs. So this old word for 20 preserved in some weird corners of the language family here and there. For 100 we get sada, and for 1000 hazer. Once again, Persian, rather Iranic influence, right? It's not like people were speaking Farsi in Crimea, but they were speaking other Iranic languages, presumably something related to what the ancients called Scythian. So compare Crimean Gothic sada for 100 with Persian sad, hazer for 1000 with Persian hazar. There are some differences from Biblical Gothic, so this is not a dialect directly descended from that of the translators of the Gothic Bible, be those Wofula himself or a team of people. For example, Biblical Gothic has stressed short E to I in most positions, not before R, so for example, baron, not biron. But Crimean Gothic doesn't have this change, so Crimean Gothic has Schwester for sister versus Biblical Gothic Swistar, Regen for rain versus Biblical Gothic Regen, and Sevena for 7 versus Biblical Gothic Sivun. There are also some vocabulary differences in as much as Crimean Gothic has chosen some alternative words that are still Germanic, but not the words we usually see in the Gothic Bible. For example, bru for bread, like English bread, not Biblical Gothic chlefs, and hus for house, like English house, not Biblical Gothic garths. Of course, chlefs and garths are related to other Germanic words, right? That's loaf, and then yard or garðr in Old Norse, right? The enclosed area around a house. But in Gothic, it's the house itself, Biblical Gothic. There are also some innovations relative to Biblical Gothic. So it looks like long O has become a long U. That's the same thing that happens in modern Norwegian and Swedish. So we have stool for chair, not stole, blod for blood, not blod, and bruder for brother, not brother. There also may be some kind of a mutation, like in other Germanic languages today, but not Biblical Gothic. So for example, we see golf for gold, not Biblical Gothic gulth. Boga for bow, not expected Biblical Gothic buga. And it looks like maybe a unique loss of N in the cluster RN. So bar for sun, not barn, and core for wheat, not corn. So those are the most interesting features that I've noticed from reviewing Buspek's account, which is in Latin and it is available online for free. You can find it on Titus. Pretty interesting to look at. There's more words he mentions, but those are the kind of broad patterns that I find, and I find they're very, very consistent with this being a dialect of Gothic that survived amazingly long. Imagine if it had survived till today. Even surviving into the 1500s, it's amazing to think all the way down that far southeast in Crimea, the closest related language to this in the 1500s, or if it had survived today, is Icelandic, right? Which is a long, long way away. It's just a reminder that the closest languages aren't always the, the physically closest languages aren't always the closest in terms of their features and descent. Now, Buspek also records a song, the words of which are Wara Wara Ingdolu Skute Gira Galizu Homeskle Dorbiza Ea, and no one has ever proposed a meaningful and persuasive translation of what on earth that means, which, you know, it's just too bad that his informants didn't speak the language all that fluently, and certainly Buspek didn't understand what he was hearing if they weren't glossing it for him. Too bad they didn't give him a translation of that song. Looks like maybe it's something about she slept, sleep ea or something, but you know, it's irrecoverable today probably. All right, well, I do teach Old Norse and Gothic in Zoom classes, and I'll do another session in September, October, so watch out for those. And thanks to those of you out there supporting the channel by buying my books, like the second edition of the Poetic Edda, or supporting the channel on Patreon. You make the world go round for me, so thank you much. And from beautiful Colorado to all you out there, please know that I'm wishing you all the best.